Welcome back to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is Ben and Matt's Marvellous Journey, a deep dive into the entire history of the MCU. I say history, there's no more history to plumb the depths of. So this is episode 25, the future of the MCU. My name is Matt Waters. I'm joined, as always, by Ben Phillips. Ben, how are you? It's been insufferably hot for the last week in the UK. Fuck anyone who complains about British weather, because right now I'm looking at some gloriously gloomy, rainy skies, and it's just
we're not allowed to
complain.
We're not allowed to complain about it. Apparently, I've seen so many things on the internet of people going like, "Oh, it's always hot in our country," and you're complaining when it gets a little bit hot. Right. All you motherfuckers say it's hot in our country. Guess what? Your country's built to heat.
Our houses trap warmth so that we can survive the bitter winters. So no heat gets out of these motherfuckers. In fucking insane. Speaking of insane, Marvel had themselves a Comic-Con slate of announcements for the first time in 2 years?
5 years, I think.
Wow.
I think the last time they did the full-on unveiling of a slate of movies was Phase 3 announcement, and they did all of it, including the one that didn't come out. Inhumans.
Right, so before we get into that, it's probably best we discuss what has come before in a lot of ways. And, you know, the MCU has been this colossal juggernaut, surprise to no one, this hot take of mine. You know, at first they were kind of just making movies to lead to the Avengers, but then there's been this conscious effort of what they've retroactively named it the Infinity Saga, all leading up to Thanos, all leading up to the Infinity Stones. Characters will die, and everything will change. And we have finally hit that point where we have gotten through Infinity War and Endgame, and we've come out the other side now. We had a Spider-Man movie, and it's not that they don't count, but they are sort of a co-thing with Sony, and it sort of serves as an epilogue more than it does and this is what it's going to be going forward. Like, it does tease some things about here's some directions we could go, but let's call that the sort of brackets sort of thing. And like, what we will get out of these movies that have been announced and TV shows is their sort of new direction post-Thanos. Yeah, you and I obviously love Marvel movies. We have made 24 episodes, and this is our 25th on how much we love them. But we hear the common criticisms, and like, there is a genuine... You know, I saw a lot of people reacting to them announcing this slate and be like, oh my god, it will never end, will it? And it's like, well, no, did you ever think it would? But
I mean, yeah, like, you look at it and say, like, the highest grossing movie of all time came out attached to this franchise. They're not going to stop making these movies if they carry on making money.
But it's like, I think some people genuinely thought this is just a silly little project, and I guess some people just are a little bit like, how many superheroes can there possibly be? Not realising that each of the major companies has literally thousands of characters to play with.
I mean, like, we're going to get to a point where diminishing returns. Like, I doubt Marvel are going to have gold balls as, like, leading a movie in the next 5 years or so.
Hey, you do not besmirch gold balls. But there is this general sentiment of, not backlash, I mean, there is a bit of that, but, like, you do hear, like, the Marvel formula, you know, heavy amounts of green screen, incredibly quippy, minimal amount of sort of building up the villain, and it just sort of leads to a sort of world-ending scenario. And, you know, they're very similar in structure and style, and a lot of the action sequences are directed by second units, and they end up looking the same, and there's a bit of a sort of company mandate about what this will look like visually.
Yeah, like, the lighting is terrible so that it can be completely flat, so the special effects can look the same, and it doesn't matter what TV or what cinema screen you look at. It's all very much like, we are going for lowest common denominator, everyone can have a base level good time, rather than thinking of this is a piece of art. I do think that there is care put into these movies, but I don't think that the direction of these movies is like the same as like a Yorgos Lanthimos movie. They're not thinking that much about composition and how this looks and stuff like that, so much as, can we convey this information as easily and visually simply as possible?
Well, there's this like accusation that it's like the Marvel machine, you know, like they're taking whatever creative flair that their writers and directors are coming up with, and then they're running it through the machine, and it's coming out the other end not completely processed and flat. And because I think every one of them has heart, and I think it would be difficult to deny that.
Yeah, people are just like, oh great, we're going to have another quippy hero, there's going to be another joke, and it's going to skew more humoury. And it's why there are some people who do latch on to the DCEU as being like the antidote to the MCU, because it doesn't make the heroes be quippy and jokey and stuff like that. But the thing is, I think it takes it in the complete opposite direction, where it doesn't let them be funny at all.
They're all sad boys. I mean, I would say for them, they have injected a huge amount of fun into their side of things. I don't know if Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, whatever the full subtitle is, will be as fun as that tiny little sizzle reel seemed like it would be. But I saw that and was immediately like, that looks cool.
Is that the next superhero movie we're getting? Is that before Black Widow? Obviously Joker's coming out later on this year, but I feel like the next
fucking count.
Birds of Prey is out in February of 2020. So yeah, it's the next superhero movie we're going to be getting, which the full title, And the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
There you go. Marvel do definitely, I think, need to change things up a little bit. I would like to see them get into genre movies a little bit. And like, they pay lip service here and there. Spoilers for in a minute, but like, Doctor Strange is threatening to be their first scary movie. It's like, I bet it will come out and there'll be like tiny amounts of it. But I would like to see them do something that isn't just the bog standard Marvel movie. I have said endlessly, I would like to see them just do like a character drama with just a character that happens to be a superhero based thing. Like, I don't know who you do that with. Maybe you do tap Noah Hawley to work on Doom for Phase 5 or something. But some of these, there might be a chance to make something a bit different. And I think everyone would like to see them mix things up visually and let some of these filmmakers put their own stamp on this work, because you can see the directors who got their own way a bit more than the others in the first 3 phases.
The thing I'll say, for the kind of like 2 or 3 directors, there's one notable exception that got their way, are very TV-like. Joss Whedon and James Gunn very much got their way, and whilst I think they did do some very visually interesting things with their movies, they're also, Joss Whedon obviously came up, his entire training of directing is from directing Buffy and Firefly and all those kind of things, and so he has that kind of like get in, get out quickly, make it visually readable. And whilst James Gunn's never had like a particularly long history in TV, I don't think he's directed that much. He still has that kind of like, not everyman's style, but he's not as stylized as some of these other directors that they've chosen. And then Coogler's probably the only other one, but then Coogler is Oscar nominated director. He is their one kind of like outlier in terms of what he's done for his movies.
But then even Black Panther, I think it is the most joyous of these formula ones, but even that does fit into that formula where it's like, we're going to have the big middle of the movie action scene and then the all is lost moment, and then it's going to turn into just a CGI nonsense fight at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that like, a big reason why the kind of ending is as flawed as it is because they changed the design of the suit at the last minute.
Okay.
And so basically, like, that's why the final fight looks so bad, is because the CGI wasn't finished, and if they'd had like 3 or 4 iterations to like what it looked like, it would look fine. Instead, it looks really plasticky and bad, and I don't think it hurts the movie. I think it is, I mean, I've said it's my second favourite MCU movie still to this point. Sure. It's the only one I think deserves its Oscar nomination, even if I think Avengers is the better movie.
It also falls into, they have an obsession with having the villain be like the twisted mirror image of the hero, which started with Iron Man 1, and like Killmonger was very different to T'Challa right up until he puts on the gold suit, the leopard version of the suit or whatever. And it's like, I realised that he kind of needed that to match him in some ways, but it would have almost been cooler if he remained in his own get-up, I think, and doing his own thing. But yeah, I think they also need a different kind of villain. Like, they've hit on some really good ones, but they are very seemingly obsessed with this thing of like mirroring the villain in the hero, and that is interesting conceptually. It's just like, I wish it were more character-based and less like Iron Man's fighting an Iron Man and Black Panther's fighting another Black Panther and this sort of stuff. So I would like to see villains of a slightly different ilk, and I think we also need a lot more diversity in who is making Marvel movies. Captain Marvel was like the first female director, and it was co-director.
Yes, Anna Boden and Ryan Flett, they obviously co-wrote the script and stuff like that. That is the first. It's the thing, like, we got in the 2 movies in a row, we got first in that we got a female-titled movie, which was Ant-Man and the Wasp, so co-titled, and Captain Marvel, which was the first solo-titled movie, but had a co.
And we also need a lot more non-straight characters, and we need a lot more non-white characters other than Black Panther who are like in prominent roles. Like, I feel like there is always an Asian scientist or an Asian something to seemingly satisfy the Eastern market in terms of getting that box office gross, but we need like prominent characters who are not white and also not necessarily straight. More diversity.
I mean, and I think we are going to be touching on like the fact that they do seem to be trying that. I mean, like, the first 2 movies of Phase 4 are going to have female directors, and then we move immediately into the very obvious pandering to the Asian market movie. They are are starting to get better. I think this is the first phase that Feige has where he is completely out from under the thumb of Marvel proper, and he doesn't have to listen to Ike Perlmutter anymore. This is Alan Horn's Disney, not Perlmutter's Disney.
Yeah, I know it seems like Ike was kicked out a while ago, so people are like, well, how come it hasn't been reflected? But, like, movies take a while to make. It takes a while for these kinds of change to take effect, and I believe Kevin Feige is a nice man with good social and moral values, and I think he sincerely wants to represent the kinds of things that we're all asking for.
I think the important distinction there is saying, like, whether or not it's something that Kevin Feige wants, or whether or not it's something that Kevin Feige sees there being money in. And I think you kind of do have to weigh up those two things. He's
not like that, but
I don't think you can say this, but I have to say I do think Disney wouldn't greenlight a movie if they didn't think it could make money. And I think it's very interesting that, like, they've started to greenlight more and more of these things as it becomes more and more apparent that they are going to start making money. And I don't think it is it is cynical in the same time as it's a good thing. Yes, we are going to get this flawed representation because it is being done by a capitalist organization intent on making money
by every other company.
But it is also going to inspire a new generation, hopefully, of filmmakers, of people who can see themselves on the screen right now.
Yes.
And I think it's whether or not you weigh up those two things as being equal in their negative impact and their positive impact. And I think both of us are kind of straddling the middle right now. And obviously there are people who think that because Disney keep on making good movies that they can ignore the flaws in Disney's filmmaking. And there's people out there who think because of just how evil Disney are in terms of how little money is trickling down through the company that they are abhorrent and they won't pay for them. And I see both of these thoughts going on my Twitter, and I do think that you and I are kind of like more in the middle where, like, we haven't reached that tipping point yet of this is problematic for us to carry on supporting these movies. And as long as Phase 4 hits and the representation isn't awful and pandering, I think we're going to kind of stay in that middle track.
Yeah, I think we've been saying all along, hey, I love this movie, but I would like to see more of this, and this is the stuff we've just been talking about. And it's not that if this isn't immediately apparent in every single Phase 4 project that I'm out, but I do think you've hit a nice sort of resting point. Ike is firmly gone. You are walking on air with, like, your success. Like, Endgame was the biggest movie ever. I feel you've kind of got carte blanche to do what you want, and, like, I think that is representative in some of these projects that they've announced that it might have been unwise to announce previously, and what is not there and all of that. So I think this is the chance. It's like, right, prove it. Go out there and give us some of this stuff and do something a bit different. And if we come to Phase 5 and we've gotten another 10 projects that are, like, almost exactly like what came before, and it's just like a scene here and a line there and an actor there, it's like, that's not good enough. So I would like to see some major change, but again, I do like what they do. It's just I would like some more of that stuff. Okay, so following the end of Endgame, where is everything at? Tony Stark is dead, Black Widow is dead, Vision is dead, Thanos is erased. I am reasonably sure way down the line they will bring Thanos back somehow. Steve Rogers, he's not dead, but he's gone. Like, he retired and grew old. Sam Wilson has the shield. There's a 2014 version of Gamora running around with no memory of the Guardians. Valkyrie is King of Asgard. Thor went off with the Guardians. The world knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man and thinks he's a terrorist. And there is ostensibly no Avengers team because Captain Marvel's off in space. Black Panther is presumably back in Wakanda doing Wakandan kingly duties. We have no idea what's going to go on with Hulk. We have no idea what's happening with Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Well, Hulk has fucked his arm up because of using the gauntlet.
Yeah, but not like forever, ever. Like,
I think they've said that Hulk will not be a presence as, like, a fighting force.
Okay, but, like, he made himself Smart Hulk. That dude must be doing something. We just don't know what it is at the end of Endgame, because they just were like, fuck off Hulk, we're going to have this be about these people. I think that's every, like, major character is vaguely accounted for there, but
Strange probably goes back to protect the Sanctum Sectorum. Ant-Man presumably has got 5 years worth of catching up with his daughter to do.
Like Pepper's off to raise Morgan. Yeah, like, you know, that's sort of your sort of state of play, like the big deaths, the big retirements, and the big changes. So we're going to go through all these announcements. We will probably spend longer on some than others. Our first one, Black Widow, is going to be released May of 2020, directed by Kate Shortland, written by Jack Schaefer, who will also be showrunning WandaVision, and Ned Benson, who wrote The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby. Black Widow's dead. So they have confirmed this is set immediately after Civil War.
This is the time frame of did they call themselves like the New Avengers or anything like that? We'll see whether or not we get cameos from like Steve Rogers or from Falcon or anything like that in the movie, because this does feel like it's very much like a Black Widow.
And will she be blonde by the end of it?
I'm just imagining the kind of thing where like she telephones Cap or whatever it is and says like, I've got to do a solo meeting, a solo mission, because something's come up.
Yeah, I mean the plot is, all we really know is it's going to involve like the Red Room and stuff. Like Kevin Feige said, the little dream sequences in Ultron where like you see some of her past at the school and like having to kill someone and all of that, and him wanting to do more with that in the future. And like this is immediately something that is a sign that Feige's finally got that full control, because he's been wanting to make a Black Widow movie for fucking forever. Like since like they debuted her in Iron Man 2, he's been fighting and losing that battle, and finally we have this Black Widow movie. And I still think it's too late. Well, it's not too late, but you know,
it's an interesting creative decision to do it a year after the character died in the biggest movie of all time,
especially when they robbed her of that like proper farewell. So I super hope this movie is potentially bookended. I don't know, like you've got them like looking over some files of her cases or something, and like it ends with a funeral or begins with a funeral. I don't know, something like we need that like proper.
I feel like this more than any other project we got feels like a passing of the torch movie, because you've cast Florence Pugh, who is slowly becoming like one of the big up and coming stars. She's still cheap enough to like probably get for like less money than Scarlett Johansson was, because Scarlett Johansson, even at that time when she was cast in Iron Man 2, was becoming the big bankable star that she eventually became thanks in part to these movies.
Well, we said like in Avengers she was probably the biggest actual bankable star of that group. If you wrote that list of actors up before Robert Downey Jr. had his huge renaissance, like she was probably the biggest star of those six.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so Florence Pugh feels like, especially because she's playing Yelena Belova, who is another Black Widow, she probably was raised in the same facility as Black Widow.
And like, you know, will we get her appearing in the future as using the code name of Black Widow? Who knows? Like, some people that would probably be a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, but you know, maybe if it's a version that like gets more pathos from the go, and like I don't know what their plans are. Like, Yelena has been a rival, Yelena has been a friend, like will she be a protege? Because there were a lot of names that they were calling out that they were looking for, and they were looking at like an Emma Watson and all these other people, and it's like, is this going to be Spider-Woman? Is this
I feel like this the people they were looking at for this role is too big for it to not be a continuing force in the MCU. I feel it's interesting that they've decided that this is the two archetypes they've decided that need to continue are Widow and Captain America, really. Although I guess you could argue as well that Spider-Man's going to be taking over the Iron Man role, but it's very interesting.
David Harbour is going to be playing the Red Guardian, who is basically like the Soviet Union's answer to Captain America. Like, he even has a shield with the sort of Soviet Union red star on it. They've said Taskmaster is going to be the villain.
Taskmaster was in the clips they showed at Comic-Con.
Yeah, and there's like concept art out there and stuff. It's like, but they haven't attached an actor to that role. So my immediate instinct is Red Guardian becomes Taskmaster, or Rick Mason becomes Taskmaster.
Yeah, I mean, you've got three actors in the cast that could conceivably play Taskmaster. David Harbour, O.T. Fagnell, and Ray Winston could all quite easily. I
mean, Ray Winston could voice Taskmaster.
I remember seeing someone on the internet kind of go like, Taskmaster's the key to unleashing Deadpool into the MCU, and I'm sat there going like, could you imagine if you got Ryan Reynolds to play Taskmaster?
Taskmaster's kind of a cool villain. Like, he
looks fucking dumb. Like, you look at Taskmaster and you sit there and go like, they're not going to translate this son. And I've not actually seen the Taskmaster concept art from Comic-Con, so I need to see this.
It's like a slightly toned down version. Like, you've got the skull mask and the cape, but
it looks sort of like Ghost from Ant-Man the Wasp.
His gimmick is he can copy any fighting move he sees, so he can basically fight anyone in the MCU to a standstill. And given that Black Widow is presented as one of the best, if not the best, hand-to-hand fighters in the MCU, like, and is cunning, like, that seems like a good match for her.
I guess the interesting thing would be, like, a little bit sexist in that I only list the males. Like, Rachel Weisz could also quite easily play Taskmaster. That'd be a fun.
True. She's listed as Melina, who will be, I guess, like one of the instructors at one of these schools or whatever. Or like,
do we reckon they're going to pull back and get some of the stuff that Joss Whedon did in Age of Ultron?
Maybe.
Who was he cast in Age of Ultron as Julie Delpy? That'd be fun.
Maybe they bring her in, and like they've said that they will do some reference to Budapest, which has been an ongoing joke since Avengers. And I think Scarlett Johansson has been a little bit coy about whether Renner will do a cameo. I think that would probably probably be for the best if we saw this Budapest mission in some way, shape or form.
I mean, yeah, this movie's got flexibility to kind of go backwards and forwards through time. We imagine that they'll be showing some childhood stuff for her. Yeah. There might even be some kind of like stuff that takes place in the blip period.
Yeah, maybe.
They have a lot of flexibility what they do with this movie. I think it's an interesting enigma. We know more or less we know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I think the interesting part of it is how they fit it around what has happened to Black Widow.
I hope we get kind of I don't mean this as a pejorative, but like a sort of quick and dirty, like stunt heavy, not gritty, but you know, like spy movie, you know, like an Atomic Blonde, like that sort of thing, rather than like the giant CGI world-ending thing. Like I would like to see something a little bit more John Wicky or
yeah, I mean the fact that this movie's only been filming for about 30 days, I think what they said at Comic-Con, and you've hired someone like Kate Shortland, who's definitely known for kind of more small scale, kind of like psychological thriller stuff. I imagine this movie will have a fairly short post-production.
Yeah, exactly. We want to see like a Mission Impossible, a Bourne, an Atomic Blonde, a John Wick, something like that, and not like your typical MCU lasers everywhere.
Captain America Winter Soldier for the first 2 acts before the giant CGI
there you go
helicarriers show up.
Oh shit, what if it just comes through and it's just like everything that people think Winter Soldier is and they can conveniently ignore the end of? That would be great. Speaking of Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is hitting Disney Plus at launch, which they've said will be August 2020. I cannot believe they haven't changed the fucking name of this thing, because The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a terrible name. Like,
it's the worst title of all the shows that they've got for there. Like, at least WandaVision's like clever.
Yeah. I understand that's what you want to call it before Endgame hits, and you're like, right, okay, here you go. Sam is now Captain America. Like, why isn't this called Captain America? Something like, I don't know, but The Falcon and the Winter Soldier...
I think Captain America and the Winter Soldier would rankle people. I think they made the smart choice in that they've chosen the Falcon to be Captain America. And whilst I think it's important for children to see people they identify as being these kind of superheroes, I think they've made this correct choice of having him be Captain America in all but name. In that, like, he is Captain America, but he's maintaining his own identity.
I figure by the end of this, he will have that name, but this will be kind of him sort of resisting being called it, and like Bucky maybe teasing him about it and like calling him Cap, and him being like, hey, don't call me that, and like by the end of it it's like, yeah, he's Captain America now. But they don't use the name as liberally as they did with Steve Rogers. I don't know, but 6 episodes, show run by Malcolm Spellman, who's done...
Although interestingly, Derek Kolstad, who's written the John Wick movies, has come on fairly recently, and it sounds like, I don't know, the way they phrased his coming on, it sounded like either a co-showrunner or like he'd be very heavily involved.
Maybe he's doing the action scenes.
Maybe, but like when you hire the guys from John Wick, I'm immediately more excited.
Yeah. Especially when you consider that Malcolm Spellman is involved in Confederate, which every episode is going to be directed by Carrie Skoglund, who, if I'm pronouncing that right, who's involved with Handmaid's Tale. She wrote an episode of The Punisher. She did Borgias, Americans, a fuck ton of shows.
Yeah, like it's a good TV thing. So this is probably my least excited of the kind of 4 that are announced, but it's also kind of like emblematic of my issues with these kind of things. Is that we've seen Marvel not be particularly good in TV, and whilst I'm happy that these are all going to be like 6 episodes, the choices of showrunners are not particularly like enthusing me. Like Derek Kolstad's probably the best showrunner we've heard so far, in that he's a proven talent, but his talents are also in movies. And so I'm worried, like, because TV is a very different set of muscles to movies, in that it is more of a writer-driven medium, and I imagine these are going to be these big budget things, and so they might have more forceful directors that are involved in them. But when you think of the list of like the MCU writers, the only ones who really kind of feel important to the project they're on is Marcus and McFeely.
Yeah.
And I'm just worried that this kind of shift from being director-driven or having directors who are quite easily controllable to a writer-driven medium in which you have to spread a 2.5 hour, 3 hour story across 6 hours might be the first true tripping point.
This isn't something we've really talked about, that like, yeah, Disney Plus will be launching, and there have been Marvel TV shows before. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been around forever and is finally ending, I think, with this upcoming season. Those are ostensibly canon, because like the Netflix shows, like, they reference the MCU, but the MCU has never referenced them. It's not that the MCU really references Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but like they're more willing to acknowledge that's a thing that is real.
Yeah, so like on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. you've had Nick Fury show up, and Agent Carter's been there, and obviously like Agent Carter was where the first crossover into the movies happened. They're more willing with these ABC shows than they were for anything else. But I do think it's important to say that like Marcus McFeely wrote the pilot episode for Agent Carter, and the Russos directed a couple episodes, I think.
All right.
So there are closer ties to Agent Carter.
Hey Ben, should I watch Agent Carter, do you think?
You should watch Agent Carter. I mean, I say a couple. I think Joe Russo directed like one.
Okay.
But like Marcus McFeely wrote the first episode, and Russo directed the second episode of the first season. So they were obviously involved in the setup for that show.
But we have here full TV shows that are 100% in the MCU. They are part of a phase. Like,
they got announced at Comic-Con.
Exactly.
They were like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a Comic-Con panel the day before in like the third biggest ballroom and wasn't even mentioned during this. Even at a point where like they are in the time period of the blip, but I don't think the blips happened.
Yeah, and it's like they let them invoke the MCU and incorporate that into their plot, but it's not that there's going to be a movie that comes out that is going to heavily rely on you having seen anything that happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And like,
I think the closest they got to that was the helicarrier that showed up at the end of Age of Ultron was built by the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That flew over most people's heads. These are being treated as essentially movies, but as TV. Like, this is an MCU entry. You know, the next time you see Sam Wilson, he could ostensibly be wearing a Captain America suit and stuff that we see him put on in this show. And, like, events will take place, theoretically, in these Disney Plus shows that they're going to assume you have seen in the same way they assume you have seen all the movies that came before.
So now that we're at this point, so we have replacements, hypothetically, for 5 of the big 6 Avengers. Hulk's the only one that doesn't really have a replacement as of yet. How would you feel about an Avengers team that was made up of Falcon, Yelena, Peter Parker, Kate Bishop, and Jane Foster?
Good. I would want Captain Marvel and Black Panther to be in there as well.
Oh, I'm sure they will be, but I'm saying they very notably, as we're going through this, I'm realising that like they have got figures to replace 5 of the 6 so far.
I mean, my instinct is you're lacking a bit of star power there, but like the Avengers was lacking star. They became stars through the Avengers. Like,
I mean, again,
so...
like, you look at that, and like Florence Pugh is up and coming. Anthony Mackie's been around forever. Tom Holland is obviously like next generation of superstars as well.
Yeah.
And we don't know who's playing Kate Bishop yet. That's probably the biggest casting gap that they had at this panel. And then Natalie Portman's probably the biggest star. If they tie her to anything else.
I don't think they'll get her to be Jane in many, many movies personally, but that is a thing. What will the future Avengers team look like? And I'd feel good about it, but we'll see what happens with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, they're talking about it as like a classic buddy movie. I really loved in Civil War these two just fucking hating each other but being Cap's friend, like them in the little car together and both getting their asses kicked by Spider-Man and be like, I hate you.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is they've said this is going to be like Midnight Run.
Yes.
Which is fun, and we'll finally get some payoff to Emily Van Camp.
Yes, Emily Van Camp is coming back. Daniel Bruhl is coming back. He's going to wear the mask, the Baron Zemo mask. I mean, I know his helmet Zemo, but... Well.
I would also be intrigued if this ties into the rumour that James Gunn, his next movie after Guardians 3 was going to be Thunderbolts. And obviously Zemo is very important to that first generation of Thunderbolts, and it'd be very interesting to see whether or not they're setting that up, or whether or not James Gunn has taken his script for Thunderbolts and gone to make a Suicide Squad movie.
That's my instinct. But I would like to see a Thunderbolts movie, yeah. But I think that's a pretty safe one to start off with. Like, the Winter Soldier name is one that it has a lot of weight because of Captain America, Winter Soldier. And it straight away says, hey, yeah, we're using the MCU actors. You're not getting, like, knockoff versions of anyone. And I know they're not the 2 biggest people, but that almost feels like the thing. It's like, right, we would love to make a movie for you, but it's not that you're being relegated to TV. But we're going to get people that they will never, like, greenlight full-on movies for are going to get a chance to shine. And, like, maybe they do really well and they do get movies in the future.
But it's weird to think that Eternals and Shang-Chi can get a green light and Falcon and Winter Soldier can't, and Scarlet Witch and the Vision can't, and Loki can't, and Hawkeye can't. These are all people that have been there, and they've proven that they can make any of these movies a hit. Like, the only one of these franchises that has not given them a recognisable, massive blockbuster hit is Ant-Man. At this point. Even Doctor Strange, like, I think everyone's expecting Doctor Strange 2 to do gangbusters.
Well, speaking of The Eternals, November 2020, directed by Chloe Zhao, who was in the running to direct Black Widow, written by Matthew and Ryan Firpo, who I think are in the writers program for Marvel because they don't have any kind of filmography I can find. The cast for this is crazy, and like doing an Eternals movie feels like such a we can make anything type flex because...
But it's weird though, because like obviously they didn't want to make Inhumans because that was being forced on them by Perlmutter, and it was very much like a fuck you Fox for keeping the X-Men, we're going to do our other X-Men.
Well, you even speculated that what if Eternals is just a fake name they're using, and once they're allowed to say they they've got X-Men. It's like, this is actually the X-Men. But no, this is a full-on Eternals movie, which is, I don't know diddly squat about the Eternals in terms of
No one knows diddly squat about the Eternals.
Are they basically a Marvel rip-off of the New Gods from DC?
Yes, but it's done by Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
So Jack Kirby leaves Marvel, like in the 1970s or whatever, goes to DC and starts doing the New Gods. He gets the New Gods cancelled, so he goes back to Marvel, and then basically just picks up all the toys that he was building with the New Gods, and then makes a new story that also gets cancelled and doesn't get finished.
Yeah.
So this is weirder than like, oh, Thanos is just an obvious rip-off of Darkseid. This is literally Jack Kirby's second attempt at doing a story of like cosmic beings dealing with kind of godhood and familial relationships and stuff like that. The Marvel Unlimited app did like a little thing where it was like, here's our recommended Eternal stories, and it's like, here's this story from the 70s. Here's Neil Gaiman's attempt at doing a reboot in the early 2000s. Bye.
That's it, yeah.
That's it. And there's a couple of projects afterwards, like there's some, Daniel Lacuna's got one that he drew a couple of years ago. I know that Jason Aaron's current Avengers run is picking up Eternals toys quite heavily, or at least Celestial toys. I know there is nothing to base this off of. This isn't even like Guardians, where like...
I was about to say, like, the immediate counter and then counter to the counter is that, like, Guardians may have been such a hit because they had more of a blank slate and there was no, like, cultural cachet of that name, but then I would imagine if I'd said that, you would have countered. But they did use the framework of those recent runs to build
exactly. Like, they literally took... I mean, obviously James Gunn made the characters more like James Gunn, but the reason they did it was because this was, like, the most hyped up kind of like underground Marvel comic run of the last couple of years.
Yeah, where it's like the public may not know who they are, so it's like you've got a blank slate, but there is an audience, no matter how small, for it. Whereas there are no fucking Eternals fans out there, but, you know, challenge extended, I guess, to them, and they want to do it as like, you know, this is a race of alien creatures who've inspired myths and legends and godhoods. There are characters called like Icarus and
Ajax,
Athena, or Athena. I think she's called.
Yeah, and like you've also got the fact that like they're rumoured to be putting Hercules in this, and they're going to cast like either an LGBTQ gay or bisexual actor to play it. I don't know why that isn't on this cast list, but like Hercules is obviously going to be the more memorable version of this.
That would be the smartest possible way to get Hercules into the MCU without having to be like, yeah, all the Greek gods were real.
So let's just run down this cast. So we've got Richard Madden of Game of Thrones and recently Emmy nominated for Bodyguard, Kamal Nanjiani of Silicon Valley, Lauren Ridloff, who most notably is actually deaf and will be talking with ASL throughout the movie.
Yeah, no deaf Hawkeye, but she will be deaf.
She will be deaf. Brian Tyree Henry from everything.
Atlanta, Spider-Verse.
Salma Hayek, probably the second biggest actress of this selection in terms of prior...
And she's playing like their matriarch, their leader sort of thing, I think.
And then we got Leah McHugh. This is one of her first film roles. Like, she's done like a couple of small things, but she's also going to be playing Sprite. She's 11 or 12 years old.
Wow.
They're estimating, so she is very young. Ma Dong-seok, or Don Lee as he's known.
Okay.
Most famous for Train to Busan, which is a fantastic little Korean horror movie. And then the big get, Angelina Jolie.
Yes, who was in talks to direct like a Captain Marvel or something like that, but they got her to star in one of their movies instead. So they won Tudor there. Interesting that she... I don't want to say like she's a fully like independent spirit or whatever and would never do like a big blockbuster thing, because, you know, she did Tomb Raider and she's done things like that. But I feel over the last decade she's been kind of not absent from the screen, but kind of just picking her own stuff. So it is interesting to me that she came on board with this, and I think it speaks to what they're trying to do here with this cast, knowing nothing of what their plot is going to be and villains and runs it's invoking, of which we just said there are probably fucking none. I think there is a real hope, and knowing who the director is, there's a real hope this is going to be something quite special.
Yeah,
it probably won't do well, but I think it will be very well received critically, is my hope. Millie Bobby Brown was rumoured to be in it, but
I imagine she'd be playing the Sprite character.
Okay.
Would be my guess.
Well, like,
but then obviously they're making it a little bit older.
They've said they want this to centre around the character of Cersei, but there is no one that I can see who has been cast as Cersei.
I think that was who Angelina Jolie was rumoured to be. I think there was very much like lots of debate about who different people were playing. This movie is very much showed in secrecy, and I think they're just about to start filming, so we might start seeing some costumes and stuff like that. I imagine they're going to be more confident.
Didn't Neil Gaiman's run centre on Cersei, and I think they were going to try and invoke that.
I mean, like, that is the most notable kind of like recent run. Even if you're looking at Inhumans, which is the most easy comparison comparison of they abandoned that movie, but it's very much Jack Kirby, very much inspired by his designs. Even that had a run within the last kind of 10 years that was quite critically acclaimed, which is the Paul Jenkins, Jay Lee run. This has, I don't even think, like, people bring up the Neil Gaiman run as being particularly special.
No, and if you look at everything that dude's done, this would not make his top 5 or probably even top 10.
Exactly. What's given them confidence in this is the Guardians of the Galaxy has obviously been a massive hit. The fact that the Kirbyisms in Thor Ragnarok hit as well as they did, I think that's why they're leaning into this. And also they want to try and beat DC to the screen with New Gods, where they got Ava DuVernay and Tom King working on it.
Oh yeah, completely forgot. They are totally doing that. So we'll see. That's probably going to be weird and a financial nightmare. I mean, we'll see. There've been so many films where it's been like, this isn't going to make money, and then it fucking did, because Marvel are unstoppable. But
I think the interesting thing to look at is how well Maleficent 2 does later on this year. While she's been away, like, Maleficent 1 was a massive hit. Yeah. She has directed Unbroken in the last decade. She's obviously kind of like not done a lot of stuff in the last like 5 or 6 years, but she's got Maleficent 2 later on this year, which if it is as big a hit as Maleficent 1, then it's gangbusters. So I think that's the only kind of like bankable actor you've got in this.
Yeah, I sort of applaud them for building a cast like this, that it is a very interesting group of people, and like not necessarily people other than Angelina Jolie, who like none of these people are really like Salma Hayek was once. I don't want to diss her, but she's not like the big deal she once was, and it's just like, here's an interesting group of people who are multi-ethnic and diverse in their backgrounds and stuff. So yeah, good on them. We'll see if that diversity desire is met here, and it seems to be. Speaking of diversity, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is coming February 2021, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who did Short Term 12, which we are big fans of here, and written by David Callahan, who is doing Wonder Woman 1984, Zombieland 2, and Spider-Verse 2, amongst the various things he's done. So that dude's got quite a future coming his way.
Let's hope he turns out to be less of a David Goyer.
So this was one of the heavily rumoured things they were going to do for a while now, because Asia is obviously a huge market, well, China specifically is a huge market in terms of global box office, and Iron Fist is very much white dudes invoking these sort of Eastern ideas and stuff, but Shang-Chi is like the real deal, an Asian superhero in Marvel's sort of canon, and like
I've mentioned, it's problematic in its own way, in the fact that it's very, like, it's at a point where Marvel had the rights to Fu Manchu.
I didn't know that was a thing you could have rights to, but sure.
Yeah, like they had rights to that, and it's awful because he's his father, and it's this kind of very 1970s pulp thing. I've heard the comics are like very fun, but they're also fun in the same way that like the Luke Cage and the Iron Fist comics of the 1970s are fun. They're more historical curios than they are like things that hold up nowadays. And again, like the Eternals, I can't, like, that is the run I have to reach to kind of like.
I mean, to me, the Shang-Chi only exists as like a member of when they made the Avengers bigger for Jonathan Hickman's run. Like Shang-Chi like was a member of the team there, and I was like, okay, if you say so, but like he's not really doing anything there.
Yeah, like there's a couple of like one issue stories. There's an issue that I think David Aja drew, written by Warren Ellis, on Secret Avengers, which is really fantastic. It's about a year or two before the Hawkeye run that he's famous for starts. I don't think he did anything much in the Avengers run.
So again, possible blank slate.
Yeah, I mean, like they've got a lot to work with. I think the more interesting things that came from that announcement, they announced the casting of Simu Liu on the day. He seems like a really nice guy based on his tweets.
He has become one of my favourite people based on his Twitter account. Like, he seems like a funny dude. Tony Leung as Mandarin.
Jesus Christ, like Tony Leung.
Yeah,
star of Hard-Boiled Internal Affairs. One of the greatest Asian actors.
Yes, they've finally made good on their threat that Sir Ben Kingsley is not the real Mandarin, and the real Mandarin is out there. So I guess, speaking of problematic, they're going to do an authentic-ass Mandarin. It's like, please update this for the time.
I don't think they will. I think if you cast Tony Leung, they're not going to give him the fucking Fu Manchu or anything like that. He's going to be like a businessman or something like that, running a terrorist organisation.
I mean, the Ten Rings as an organisation has been around since Iron Man 1, long before they did actual Mandarin. And like, all the people who are like, yes, finally real Mandarin. It's like, fuck off. They're gonna change it again. I hope you know that. Like, he's not gonna be fucking sitting there in the, like, fucking green kimono and...
The only reason I'm excited for them doing Mandarin is because they gotta get this big. Any other actor, any other movie, I'd be like, really, you're doing Mandarin? But, like, the fact that they're going for Tony Leung, I'm just like, okay, I will watch Tony Leung as, I don't want to say mustache-twirling villain, but, like, the villain of this movie. And then Awkwafina as the female role. They haven't announced who should be playing, but yeah, like, this cast really
that's a hell of a trio. And the director, and hopefully the writer. I mean, he's at least attached to big projects, so if he's bad, he's tricking his way into a lot of good things, I guess. But yeah, that director and this trio of stars, like, that alone, I'm like, yep, fucking sign me up, I will see you there. WandaVision, coming in early 2021, 6 to 8 episodes, they haven't committed to how many exactly. Showrunner Jack Schaefer, who, as I said, Black Widow. Concerningly, she did that movie The Hustle, which seemed terrible.
Yeah.
We've heard some mixed things in terms of plot details here, where, like, it takes place after Endgame and it leads directly into Doctor Strange 2. Like, this is the first explicitly, like, this will directly impact a movie. And, like, we've said, like, probably the Falcon and the Winter Soldier will have future ramifications, but this is full on, hey, what happens here will be referenced and, like, be important to the plot of Doctor Strange, and Scarlet Witch will be in Doctor Strange 2. But also, they have talked about how this will feature some kind of 50s style. All this made me think is, like, she's trying to, like, rebuild Vision or fix him or something like that, or maybe she's having a bit of a...
The most famous Scarlet Witch story is, of course, House of M.
Yes, where she has a complete breakdown and breaks the universe.
Yeah, I have to imagine it'll be something akin to Scarlet Witch has, I don't want to say mental breakdown, but she creates probably a pocket universe where she is living a very 1950s style housewife, house husband.
Yes, which makes me think of Tom King's Vision run, where, like, the front cover of the very first issue and of the first volume is this sort of perfect Americana 50s nuclear family of, like, 2 children and a dog and the white picket fence, and they're all just smiling and waving at camera. That's the first thing I thought of when they said 50s and they said Vision.
I mean, like, the interesting thing is they've cast Fiona Paris as Monica Rambeau. I love her. She is wonderful. She was fantastic on Dear White People, on Mad Men, in If Beale Street Could Talk. Just a wonderful, wonderful actress, and I am so happy with this casting. Playing Monica Rambeau. She's the daughter of Maria Rambeau from Captain Marvel, so obviously, like, they've taken advantage of the fact that that movie was set in the 90s. We're a good 23 plus years away from that.
So the cute kid that is choosing Carol's suit for the end, this is her all grown up. So to me, this character has no real kind of history with either Scarlet Witch or Vision, and I don't really see her power set as one that would, like...
That she could turn into, like, something on the electromagnetic spectrum makes me wonder whether or not this is existing in Vision's mind or something, that's why she's gone to kind of, like, investigate. She used to be the leader of the Avengers.
Has a character had more aliases than Monica Rambeau? Like...
Yes, but, like, my favourite run with her in is Next Wave, which is mostly a comedy book, but it's absolutely wonderful. But yeah, like, I'm so happy that they've cast her and done this.
It's very cool. This could be good. Paul Bettany's a good actor. I think Elizabeth Olsen has quietly become quite a good actress.
Her Facebook Watch show is very good.
I think her dropping the bad accent helped a lot with her acting as Wanda. And, like, I look forward to them trying to dig into this a bit more. Like, you know, I've said for a long time I want them to just do, like, a drama movie about a relationship, and I always invoke Mary Jane and Peter Parker and, like, you know, just focus on these two and leave all the superhero stuff at the peripheral. And, like, maybe they'll do that here. I don't know. Maybe we'll get into the fantastical with this sort of, like, 50s fantasy life that's being lived, and maybe this is a way that Wanda is dealing with her trauma, and who knows.
We didn't get Tom King mentioned on stage. We don't know about that one.
Well, that motherfucker is writing that fucking New Gods movie, so fuck him forever.
This is probably the most unproven creative team for any of these shows that have been out so far. Like, obviously Hawkeye hasn't got anything, neither does What If, but we don't know whether or not Jack Schaefer's a good writer. We don't know who's directing it. I'd love it if they got one of the main directors for Mad Men. That'd be quite a fun little throwback. Someone who's used to working in that kind of, like, period time space.
What we do know is, as mentioned, Wanda will be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think that's the title. Not and the, in the. That's coming May 2021.
I think I saw someone say that Marvel actually, like, got the copyright wrong, and, like, they've registered the copyright as being "and the madness of the multiverse" or something along those lines.
Excellent. Wonderful. So Scott Derrickson's coming back. I don't know how good of a directing job he did the first time. I think it was perfectly fine.
A lot of the stuff that he did was previs. I remember talking to a friend who worked on the movie, and he was very much like a lot of the effects stuff was previs, and I don't think he wasn't hamstrung by that, but I do think that like a lot of what we remember visually being great about that movie was done in previs.
Yeah, like Dan Harmon worked on it and stuff, and you get the feeling it was all just there already, and it was like, hey, come do the sequences in between, and like those were the sequences that weren't as good.
Yeah, it's interesting that Scott Derrickson saying he's going to return to his horror roots, because obviously that's
Cumberbatch
where he's
said it's going to be a bit of a horror. And
I'm interested. At the moment, we've only got Cumberbatch and Benedict Wong and Elizabeth Olsen confirmed for the cast, so no one returning from first Doctor Strange outside of Wong and Cumberbatch.
Yeah. You know, they've said they're seeking a writer, so I guess John Spates and C. Robert Cargill are out the window, but I know that Derrickson wanted to do characters like Nightmare and possibly Mephisto. And
I've heard Nightmare is being thrown around as the villain, but I'll be sad if we don't get Chiwetel or Rachel McAdams to come back.
Oh yeah, of course. They fucking did their like whole, and now he's wearing a hoodie, didn't they?
Exactly. Like, they set up Chiwetel Ejiofor to be the villain of the next movie, and now they're saying they're going to do Nightmare. And so we have this guy,
like invokes Nightmare or like unleashes him somehow?
Maybe, but the fact that they haven't announced his casting leaves me a little worried that maybe he doesn't want to come back, or maybe I don't know. We'll find out. It's not like he's out with Disney House. He's just rap playing Scar in The Lion King. He's going to be in Maleficent too. So
I would assume Dormammu returns, and you know that was Cumberbatch anyway. So like, maybe they'll change how he looks. I don't know.
So the title, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, interesting that like they tease it as a fake out in Spider-Man, where it's like, oh yes, I'm from the multiverse, and then it's like, nah, he's faking it. But then it's like, but here's the real ass multiverse, like the whole Mandarin thing, you know.
But could you see it as being maybe there isn't a multiverse until Wanda makes one because of the stress that goes on in WandaVision?
Maybe.
Hence why it's a multiverse of madness. Like maybe Nightmare has something to do with going
this is
wrong.
Literally her nightmares made flesh.
Exactly. So
yeah, that could be interesting. Like she is profoundly powerful, but doesn't quite have that level of control, and he has to come in and like not fix her mess, because that feels a bit misogynistic. But you know, I wonder as well if. Because, I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch is a weird dude. He obviously is never struggling for work. But I feel his, like, commitment to Marvel, like, I just expect any minute it's like, he's not going to be in any of them anymore. And he seems genuinely happy to be making them. So on some level, I'm like, is this him training her to be a protege so they have someone they can consistently get to represent the sort of mystic side of things going forward?
I remember reading the articles that, like, he wasn't available for filming of Endgame.
Which is why he's just making water.
Exactly, because he was filming something else. And I watched the deleted scene they've got that shows Gamora running away.
And everyone taking a knee.
And Benedict Cumberbatch is the only one who's, like, on his own in a close-up. And it's just like, you were not on set the same day as anyone else.
Yeah, or like, if you think about when Tony looks at him and he holds up the one, it's like, yeah, almost all of your scenes you're by yourself, aren't you?
The only days you were available to do stuff with other people was, like, all the stuff in Infinity War. And even then, by the end, you're kind of, like, segregated from everyone else.
He seems happy to be involved. I just think it's trying to get him, and like it's why I was skeptical he was even going to get cast in the first place, because his name was going around to be it before he signed up, and I was like, they won't get him, he's far too busy. And it's like, oh well, here he is. But I could see it being that kind of thing where it's like, right, Wanda is our like she will always be around type figure, but like every now and then you'll get a Doctor Strange cameo where it's like, you know, you think back to the Civil War comic, Doctor Strange is there, but it's like, oh, I'm dealing with other stuff or whatever, like, you know, like it's someone they could visit, and like you can be assured that he's doing important things even if you're not seeing them, kind of deal. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm interested. I like the visual stuff in Doctor Strange. It isn't my favourite origin movie.
No, I think the hope and the wish is that it's going to be a whole movie of the weird visual stuff and also the horror elements. I'm not a huge horror fan, but like I said at the top, I'd like to see them get into some more genre stuff, and I hope this isn't just lip service and it's like, oh, we're doing one scary sequence. I hope, you know, even if it's going to make me less inclined to see it because I don't like horror movies, I hope they do make a full-on fucking horror movie, albeit one that's like a 12A or whatever.
Yeah, it'll be a 12A and there won't be much of anything to it.
Yeah.
And now my biggest disappointment.
What, Loki?
I should love everything about this.
Coming mid-2021 to Disney+. 6 to 8 episodes, show run by Michael Waldron. Who
was like a writer on Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it's the dude that was tangentially involved with Community and Rick and Morty, I believe, yeah. They've said it will explore, because you get that whole scene in Endgame where Loki escapes with the Tesseract, which sort of creates an alternate timeline, yeah. And it's like, Tom Hiddleston said this is one of the greatest creative opportunities he's ever been presented, but is this just PR bullshit stuff that he would say no matter what they'd presented him?
I've heard the pitch is Loki through the ages doing his life and interacting with, like, famous historical events.
Yes, and they have an opportunity to have kid Loki and female Loki, and Jason Aaron's like more feral Loki, and
all of that is fine.
Yes.
But one of my favourite comic book runs of the last decade is Kieran Gillen's run on Loki, which is very much riffing on Sandman, but is all about Loki dies in Siege and is reborn as a small child, and the run kind of is all about him trying to prove that he is not the same as the previous Loki. Like, he is not evil, he is good and wants to be good, and it has this tragically dark ending. It's wonderful and fantastic, and I love it to pieces. And so when Loki dies in Infinity War and they announce this show, I'm sat there like, oh, they're going to stealth do Journey into Mystery, but no, it's adult Loki with Tom Hiddleston.
Well, I feel you don't get a Loki movie unless Tom Hiddleston's in it, and the speculation was maybe he's just narrating it and you get different actors playing Loki, and maybe that is what they're going to do, but
it's just a little bit sad. Like, we have, WandaVision could quite easily be based on Tom King run, Hawkeye is obviously going to be based on the Matt Fraction run, and this would have been like my favourite one of those, and
yeah,
I'm sad. I'll watch it, I'll probably still enjoy it, because I think it's going to have some fun historical stuff.
Yeah.
If they do lean into kind of the gender fluidity of Loki, then that'd be really interesting.
What if we did get an episode with a kid playing Loki? Maybe
exactly.
Like a one-episode Journey into Mystery.
But will he be followed round by a magpie voiced by Tom Hiddleston? See, that's what you're missing if you don't get Journey into Mystery. You don't get Ickle the magpie whispering in his ear.
Well, everyone's horny for Loki, so they're unleashing some porn on Disney Plus, I guess. Speaking of Disney Plus, also coming mid-2021 is What If, which the internet has had fun with renaming stuff like Unless, ? Episode count and showrunner to be confirmed, but it will be an animated series exploring alternate outcomes of key MCU events from the first.
I like that they said we've got no rights or anything like that, but here's the list of people who are going to be in it. It's like, so you have the conversations with the people first, and basically going to say, like, right, here's our 50 cast members that we can use.
Everyone will be voiced by who they were played by in the MCU. Well, not, I don't think Robert Downey Jr. is up there, I don't think Chris Evans is up there, but, Hemsworth is there, and a whole bunch of people.
It's a big old list. The only new casting is Jeffrey Wright's going to be playing Uatu the Watcher.
That's basically narrator.
Who potentially we've seen in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. We don't know for certain which one was which. No plot. Isn't one of them like What If
Thanos joined the Avengers?
Is that one of them?
Oh, they said when they're talking about what it is, they mention that What If story from comics. So
okay, I think I heard the one was like What If Peggy Carter became Captain America was the one I remember hearing.
Okay, and that would be cool. The other Disney Plus shows, I think they're all meant to be like 1 hour episodes and short episode counts. I imagine this is going to be like 22 minute type deals.
This feels like the biggest stretch that they've done so far. It's animation, it's not live action. Like, I'd be really impressed if they did do like kind of like 10-15 minute short things with the original actors. That would be really impressive. I understand why they've done it animation, but it is going to feel very different to everything else that's been announced.
It's odd that this got included as part of Phase 4, because we knew this was coming, but it's odd that... I don't know if it's odd, but it's interesting to me that they confirmed this to be part of Phase 4.
I can't imagine anything in this movie will have any impact anywhere else, unless it's playing off of the multiverse thing.
Yeah, maybe. I think it will be fun, and we'll see what wacky things they invoke. But
I mean, this is the kind of thing where I'm very much sat there going, I need to see what the art style's going to be, who's going to be animating it, who are you going to have as a showrunner? Are you going to have a showrunner, or are you just going to go to the original writers of these movies and ask them to do like an alternate take? You're going to do different art style for every episode.
I was going to say, what if they do that like anthology style? Like, we got a different animation studio to do each episode, or a couple of them do like 3. I don't know. And what's the episode? Are we looking at a 20 episode cartoon show? Are we looking at a very limited run? Who knows? But
I mean, they could even do it's a half-hour show, but each one is like a 10-minute segment, sort of like how the Cartoon Network shows run, where it's 2 10-minute enclosed things rather than a 20-minute continuous story.
It's a return of the Marvel one-shots.
Yeah, it is. This feels like what they're doing is, rather than kind of getting a school of kind of like TV actors to kind of come in every so often and do little connective tissue. This is an alternative to that. It just feels weird.
It could be cool. It could be terrible. It could have the longest legs of anything they've announced, because they could do this forever, but who knows?
I think this is the only one that feels like it could go beyond season 1.
Yes. You mentioned earlier Matt Fraction being invoked for Hawkeye. Hawkeye is coming in late 2021 to Disney+. Episode count showrunner also to be confirmed, but that logo sure is Matt Fraction-y, and they have said Kate Bishop will debut here as his protege. They have said they will do some stuff with Ronin and explore his time as Ronin, and hopefully they mop up. We didn't mention this when we covered Endgame, but like I saw someone point out that like when he's Ronin, he is murdering Mexican gangsters and Japanese traitors, like, so he's just killing minorities, and it's like, that's not something I really thought of when I was watching it, but it's like, that is an unfortunate through line here, so...
He was going around the world cleaning up people who he thinks are bad. It's just a shame that the showrunners go like, who are the worst gangs in the world?
Exactly, like, and like, you know, maybe we come in here and we suddenly fix a bit of that and make it a little bit less... What if he
came in and was, like, killing, like, football hooligans or something?
Yeah, there you go. The thing I'm most excited about here is this will get Jeremy Renner the fuck out of here, and we can have Kate Bishop, the one true Hawkeye.
One true Hawkeye. I mean, the casting is going to be very important on that role. I can't imagine they're going to fuck that up. It's very obviously the Matt Fraction, David Aja run with the logo. Kelly Thompson obviously took over and kind of like took on a similar logo when she kind of did what became a solo Kate Bishop, but pretty much after Hawkeye got arrested for murdering Hulk.
There you go. It goes some fucking places. Anyone listening to this who has not read even at least the first volume of Matt Fraction's Hawkeye run, please just go fucking read it. It is one of the more like non-comic book fan-friendly comic books I've ever read.
It's like the artwork is fantastic.
It's so stylish.
It's so stylish. Fun. The entire thing is set in like an apartment complex.
He has that dog called Pizza Dog.
He does have a dog called Pizza Dog. If they don't do a Pizza Dog Solves a Murder episode, I'm going to riot.
My biggest hope with this is that, you know, Kate Bishop is in, Jeremy Renner retires. They've said it's set after Endgame, obviously, if they're going to do the Ronin stuff. You know, Kate Bishop can then lead her team of young Avengers.
Yes, I think it's very important to say that like two of these things are posed around characters who are in the Young Avengers, and we have stuff like America Chavez, and there is a whole generation of next generation, like younger characters that they can mine from that I feel are more vital than a lot of what is left of like the adult older characters.
Yeah, I think they've actually hit a lot of the pretty much all of the big musts for the adults.
There is pretty much like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four are coming, and I'm sure we'll discuss those in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously the street level stuff is being used up. What is She-Hulk? Is She-Hulk the only thing that is left untapped?
I think everyone else it needs to be like the kids and the new generation who you can exploit young actors and trap them in 10-year contracts for. But here we go, the project I think almost everyone is the most excited about. Thor Love and Thunder, coming November 2021 to theatres. Taika Waititi is returning as director, and he's now getting full writing credit. As you told me at the beginning, the third person in the history of the MCU to get this after
Joss Whedon for Avengers 1 and Avengers 2, and actually, did Joss Whedon get it for Avengers 1?
I don't think so. He had to split it with
Zach Penn. No, so Joss Whedon only got it for Avengers 2, and James Gunn only got it for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So there's a sequence of the second movie getting to do your solo director-writer credit.
We trust you, basically, after you made a monster hit.
We imagine Ryan Coogler is going to get his chance with Black Panther 2.
I assume he's writer and director of Black Panther 2. The reason, beyond the fact that, you know, Ragnarok is fucking dope and injected so much new life into Thor and, like, made it the own... I mean, you know, this is the first of the solo movies to get beyond a trilogy. Ordinarily, it's like, right, Thor 1 and 2, Thor 3, so good that you kind of have to do a Thor 4.
But that's the thing, is like Thor has had, they mention, Hulk will have a little 3-movie arc with Ragnarok and the 2 Avengers movies. But no, everyone neglected to say that like Thor has had this massive creative resurgence and like urge to see him on the screen with these 3 movies.
Yeah.
Like Chris Hemsworth has gone from being someone who they used well in Thor 1 and then completely fumbled the ball across 3 movies pretty much. His best moments in Avengers are like his bit like adopted brother, stuff like that. And then we get to Ragnarok and it's just like, no, he's our comedy character.
He's a funny motherfucker who's also like, he is a really good actor. Yeah, I feel the last 2 Avengers and Ragnarok were a massive showcase of like, here's everything Chris Hemsworth can do. He should be the guy you are focusing on the most.
This movie got announced a couple of days beforehand. We just knew that Taika had signed on for Thor 4.
Gorgeous graphic for this.
Yeah, like, it's so heavy metal. It's wonderful.
But also like neon nonsense. You know, like the same way Ragnarok was like this. It's like we're doing like dumbass metal that invokes gods and stuff, and we're also doing like campy neon Kirby space nonsense, and I love it. And
yeah, and then so they come out on stage, announce that it's part of Phase 4. I think everyone kind of assumed that Phase 4 would end in a different way, and we'd get Panther or something to finish off the phase. So they're finishing with this. They bring out Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson.
And one of the big reasons to love that Taika's getting full writing credit is Tessa Thompson makes her joke about, Valkyrie, now she's king of Asgard, is going to be looking for her queen, and Taika makes the excited faces and everything, and then they confirm afterwards, yes, Valkyrie will be an openly queer character. Taika was pushing for this when he made Ragnarok. It got out there that there was a scene.
There is a cut scene of a girl leaving Valkyrie's bedroom, which I don't even think is on the deleted scenes. I don't think it's didn't even make it that far.
Taika pushed for it in Ragnarok and got overruled. So him getting that, it's not that he can't be overruled, but it's just him having even more power.
They've done this at Comic-Con now. They've had this line out at Comic-Con. Even if Marvel were like iffy beforehand, like it's out in the ether now, and like they're going to get a shout on if they don't follow through with this.
Yeah, and queer icon Tessa Thompson playing queer icon Valkyrie.
There's all kinds of rumours, like obviously like both Tessa Thompson and Brie Larson have been very much playing into the kind of queer subtext of both their characters, liking a hell of a lot of artwork and stuff like that. I doubt that Captain Marvel will be that character. But then they come out and say like, well, we've decided, like Taika comes out and says like, I've been reading a lot of the recent Thor comics and I've really loved Jason Aaron and Russell Dauterman's run on
Same,
Thor.
as someone who recently finished that.
I've been really enjoying this, and so I feel like we should say that we're going to be introducing a new Thor, and then fucking Natalie Portman walks out on stage.
Who was like the most, I don't care, I'm not coming back to Marvel, and then they get her for Endgame. It's like, but did they? And then it's like, oh, surprise, motherfucker, she's going to be Thor.
They give her Mjolnir. I mean, there's all kinds of questions like Mjolnir doesn't exist in the current timeline of the MCU. Are they going to be introducing her to be Valkyrie's love interest, which will create an interesting queer love triangle?
Well, I mean, they left hanging in Ragnarok like this sexual tension between Valkyrie and Thor, with them just like flirting outrageously with each other at times. I would love to see an actual love triangle, not just like two women fighting over a man, or a man basically refusing to commit to either of them. I would love to see Valkyrie and Jane flirting outrageously with each other, and Thor almost being the one that's sort of like left out in the cold a little bit, like, but what about me? And it's like, what about
like, I think my friend did raise a good point, which is like, I don't think Natalie Portman would want to come back to be just the love interest, but I do think it would be very interesting as a wrinkle to have it be like, we're going to make this.
What if Hemsworth is the like eye candy love interest, and like this is all just Jane and it's Valkyrie doing the heavy lifting? And when Jane became Thor in the comics, traditional Thor, I don't want to say male and female Thor.
I mean, I call Jane Thor and Odin's son.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, he becomes known as Odin's son, and he is unworthy, and he is wielding the axe instead. He has Stormbreaker now, which is a bit more of an axe than it is a hammer.
It's not Jangeborn, as it is.
Yeah, they confirmed he's still worthy, and like that's a whole beat where it's like he does that wonderful crying smile when he's like, yes, when he can still lift the hammer, and like it would be gross to say now that he's fat, he's not worthy. And I expect him to not be Fat Thor in this movie, unfortunately. But maybe
he will have lost weight. We'll see whether or not the Guardians cameo, because this is set before Guardians 3.
Interestingly, that he left with them, but like, and I think James Gunn was like, oh, Thor ain't going to be in Guardians 3. And it's like, what happened then?
Didn't he come out and say, like, his exact quote was, Thor will not be in Suicide Squad, or something along those lines? Like, people said, like, will Thor be in Guardians 3?
Yeah, but I feel even before that, people were asking him, and he was like, no. But, maybe something happened with the Guardians that made him unworthy, who knows? But yeah, I would like to see something akin to that, because Odin's son was kind of like off to the side while Jane was the star of the Thor comic, and then they come together, and it's like having these two Thors together. It's like, yeah, fucking cool. And like I would love to see the three of them.
Yeah, we'll see whether or not they go into like the Mighty Storm and stuff like that, and like a new Mjolnir being formed. Yeah, because like that's the thing, is like I have to imagine this will have to play off that kind of stuff. Yeah. Apparently this movie's filming back to back with Shang-Chi, which is interesting.
Weird. It made me think just of that whole Jason Aaron run, and it just made me think, oh, I'd love to see Hemsworth trying to play like old King Thor, and like because you had that generational thing. There was old Thor, there was current Thor, and there was like the young arrogant Thor who just had the axe. And like I would like to see some of these like riffs on the Thor stuff and all the Aaron stuff. And yeah, I'm super excited for Valkyrie to have an even bigger role, and like I think we all agree we'd like to potentially see a Valkyrie solo movie or something at some point. Yeah. But maybe this is as close as we get, and it's like, like, it may be called Thor, but like, the Thor we know is like sort of the third wheel to these two kicking ass. Who knows? But like, you know, we all love Ragnarok, we all love Taika, we're all very excited for Jane, for Natalie Portman to be back and to actually get something to do. I was just so frustrated for her playing Jane before and like just relegated to just his girlfriend and like giggling when he's muscular and stuff. And I'd like to see her actually get to do some acting and get to do some fucking ass kicking. Like she said, she always had hammer envy and stuff. Like she's gonna have the hammer, and super, super excited.
Yeah, it's a good way to end a phase. Like this feels like the strongest end to a phase since the Avengers. If we're looking at Spider-Man and Ant-Man as being like end of phase movies. And then we know that phase 5 is planned.
Yes, like Kevin Feige said, we've got it fully planned. We almost announced it all, but we thought, we've got enough here.
The thing is that this is 2 years. Like this is just the next 2 years. We are getting 10 projects in 2 years.
10 projects.
5 of which TV shows.
Sure.
And it just makes it a very different feel. Like we are getting 5 movies between 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
2 in 2020, 3 in 2021, and then but 2021's the packed one because there's 4 fucking TV shows coming in that year.
I mean, maybe one of those gets pushed a little bit. I don't know, but Feige was like, you know, we've got plans for Fantastic Four, we've got plans for Mutants. We didn't have time. Maybe this will all get talked about a little bit more at D23, which hasn't happened yet, but the one project they did firmly commit to in terms of, you know, in the same way, in terms of making an announcement. Blade, out comes Mahershala Ali with a baseball cap with a Blade logo on it. You know, Wesley Snipes has been angling to can still be Blade for a long time, and it's like,
please, I need money for all my debt that I'm in.
Oh yeah. On some level, it's like it would be a cool win for that guy to like. I say a win for that guy, like that guy's a fucking tax fraud person, but yeah, on some level, part of you wants him to get to still be Blade because he just so expertly did the one-liney, fucking stupid but amazing lines. But Mahershala Ali is a monster of a recast.
2-time Academy Award winning actor, even if one of the movies he won his Academy Award for is the worst Best Picture winner of the decade, and the other one is the best Picture winner of the decade. So he's quite the stretch.
Yes, no writer, no director, no details. It just makes me think maybe they literally got him to sign this contract like days ago. I'm like did you come to Comic-Con?
Apparently he called them after he won his Oscar and was just like,
wow, like
this is like the blank check of an actor. His first call after winning his second Oscar was, I want to play Blade.
Wow, that's cool. Go Mahershala Ali. This single-handedly erases the Netflix verse because he was Cottonmouth, obviously. So that's.
I love the interview where Kevin Feige sat there and like someone's like struggling questions. He goes like, will Blade have any ties to Cottonmouth? And Feige's just like, no, nothing. We're not even going to reference that they look the same.
Bye, everyone.
No one gives a shit about those shows. They're cancelled. They're gone. We're not even going to cry that we can't make a Daredevil movie.
My immediate thing is, even more than Cumberbatch, they will never get him for more than like this and like maybe a sequel. But like in an ideal world, I would love to see them attempt to build some kind of supernatural Avengers. Have him with Doctor Strange.
But that's the thing is, like they have got like they've lost a lot of ground to the other street level heroes or the supernatural heroes, but they do still have like Moon Knight.
I was going to say, I would love to see
like
Moon Knight
one.
Maybe be the villain of this movie who turns good, or like, you know, I mean, it's going to be a vampire, obviously, but you know, maybe not. Like Blade doesn't just fight vampires; he is just a general fighter of like demonic forces and stuff. And like, you know, I'd love to see
for Wolfcap.
I would love to see like, you know, him and either Strange or Wanda and like Ghost Rider and Moon Knight, you know, some sort of like little like supernatural Avengers.
I hope they hire Guillermo del Toro and you groan because you don't like Blade 2.
So boring.
Do you want to do the plug?
No, I don't. I don't want anyone to listen to the first winners on EnterTheRealWorld.com. I'm not proud of that trilogy of podcasts. Although one of the most listened to episodes in the history of this podcast is our Blade Trinity one, which is 20 minutes long, and just
I enjoy that there is now a trilogy of things that like we will both be covering, me, you and Mike Thomas.
Yeah.
Because there is now, when the Blade movie comes out, there has to be a First Winners episode 4.
Oh fuck, that does, doesn't it? No, je refuse. So that's everything firmly announced. As we said, like Kevin Feige was like, obviously we're doing Black Panther 2 and Guardians
like
3.
Coogler is signed on to write and direct, so that is
like
100% happening. It's the biggest solo movie movie in the franchise.
Yeah. You and I speculate that they will do Captain Marvel 2, Black Panther 2, and Guardians 3 in the same year, and it will be the
fucking insane
biggest money year of anything that didn't have Avengers in it. And it may, maybe combined, the three of them will do better than any year that's had an Avengers.
Like this year is the first year they've hit $1 billion for all three movies, because like Spider-Man has just hit it. Like when we recorded Far From Home like a week ago, I said like they were about within spitting distance, and they passed it this week. So like this is the first year that all three MCU movies have done $1 billion. Ant-Man and the Wasp let the side down last year.
Well, there you go. I mean, no Ant-Man sequel announced. I would just fold him and Wasp into a team personally.
They are the one that hasn't taken off. All the movies that they've got unannounced but kind of like obviously happening, like Panther, Guardians, Captain Marvel. There will be a Sony Spider-Man sequel at some point that is in the contract. We don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe they can convince them to just do Venom and Spider-Verse and hold off on a third Tom Holland Spider-Man movie for a bit.
The reason they rushed up the second one was obviously because they were worried they weren't going to have a hit, and then Venom hit in between. We'll see whether or not like Morbius tanking will tempt them to kind of like push it forward a little bit. But
I constantly forget Morbius is a thing, and I think it's intentional but subconscious in my brain. Like, nope, don't remember that.
So let's just briefly touch on I think the Fantastic Four are going to happen before the X-Men. I think whilst the Fantastic Four have potentially had more bad movies than the X-Men, there's probably more clamouring for a
good Fantastic Four
movie. Yeah,
movie,
exactly. And I had the stupid idea, like, because obviously Peyton Reed is quite famous for having a Fantastic Four script that never got made, which was going to be set in the 1960s. I'm sure they could add on a little bit that like gets them to the present day and becomes like a fish out of water tale. I'd be quite interested to see whether or not they decide to do something like really weird, like Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Fantastic Four, to tie them all together for a third one and have it be...
there is a lot of history with those characters crossing over and stuff.
Have Reed working for S.H.I.E.L.D. back in the 1960s, he disappears, and then maybe play up his relationship to camp him.
We've been off in space, we've been in the quantum realm, we've been in the multiverse.
Exactly, like you could say like they went into the quantum realm or an equivalent or the negative zone, something like that. There's flexibility there to tell this story. We'll see what gets announced there, when it gets announced for. At this point, it's not Phase 5. It's sad it's not Phase 4.
I would expect them to holding off on doing both of these, to just really take their time and also just let them rest a bit. I would expect little tiny references and Easter eggs here and there to slowly seed things in for it. Like maybe you have a cursory line about mutants or something.
Could you see Eternals leading into X-Men? Because obviously there's the whole thing of the Celestials maybe having some impact on the birth of mutants.
I don't know. I wouldn't think so, because I don't think they can rely on that being something that a lot of eyeballs are on.
Unless they're going to be going, these things have existed for God knows how long, there needs to be some triggering moment.
I assume they're just going to claim it as something to do with the blip and like fixing the blip and Hulk's attempt to fix the blip and well, Hulk did fix the blip, didn't he? Some weird, or whatever Wanda does, and like, Wanda's history as temporarily a mutant, apparently for however many decades temporarily. Something there, like a change, a fracture, you've changed the universe and now they're a mutant.
So we both agree Fantastic Four is going to come first. X-Men definitely needs to rest. They need to take their time with both of them.
I hope they do talk Noah Hawley into making a Doom movie. Because, Thanos, enormous. Norman Osborn, pretty big, but, because of that whole Sony relationship being, you can't rely on that. You may not want to do that. Kingpin, a huge villain, but, not necessarily someone that you would need the entire Avengers for. Doom is, the fucking villain as far as I'm concerned, in terms of, what you can do with him. I know Thanos is great, and they did more with him than I ever expected, but, Doom can be the answer to, any question. They did a fucking 2-year event with a mystery villain at the end, and then when it was revealed to be Doom, it's of fucking course it was Doom, you morons.
But so Deadpool's kind of like the elephant in the room. Yeah. I can't imagine they want to wait too long before greenlighting a Deadpool movie. It just depends whether or not the Deadpool movie ends up in the MCU or not. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the first Fox movie to make it over.
They will have to keep Deadpool going, it's just how they treat it.
It's just the intriguing one, because Deadpool is the out-and-out success. They've lost Hugh Jackman. If they still had Hugh Jackman, I imagine they would be working on a Wolverine movie as well.
Maybe let's just work on the X-23 Wolverine movie.
She's busy with His Dark Materials, Matt.
Well, whatever. The Disney Corporation, the larger company, has movies that have been released that are not child-friendly. Yes. So they can. It's not like it's impossible that they're going to release a rated-R Deadpool 3. It's just how they handle it. You called him Thanos, and they make Batman references and all this sort of shit. So they can kind of do what they want with Deadpool without having to acknowledge the relationship the other way. Maybe we get like a Deadpool who is swearing and he keeps getting beeped and he's like, what the hell?
Much like the joke they make in Deadpool Once Upon a Christmas.
Yes, which I never saw and made you hate Deadpool 2 forever.
It just made the movie really, really boring, apart from the stuff that they add. So, Avengers.
Yeah, what is an Avengers team going to look like? It has to have Brie Larson and Chadwick Boseman on it. And like, I know they're in Infinity War and Endgame, but they're not really. And I'm dying to see these two actors get to actually do deep, meaningful scenes with everyone else.
That's the biggest shortfall of how they made Infinity War and Endgame, was Black Panther was filming at the same time as Infinity War, and Captain Marvel didn't start filming until after.
They didn't know what they had with either of them when they were filming, and now they know, and like both of those actors are more comfortable in those roles and like made them their own. They are both orders of magnitude better in their own thing. I mean, Chadwick Boseman was pretty good in Civil War.
He was, but like,
but Black Panther is such a thing now that like you have to imagine whatever they do next time will be so much better, like in terms of an ensemble.
It's crazy to think that like one of the biggest cheers we got in Infinity War is when the Black Panther score comes on. This Oscar-winning score that they've got like comes on in Infinity War, and it's like already within like 2 months of being released, this is an iconic piece of music. But yeah, it's huge. But like, yeah, it's like they've said we don't know what the Avengers team is going to look like. We don't even know whether or not Thor's going to be the only holdout from the original set to kind of like close out his time on the series.
I could see him being in it. That's the whole thing. Like, you know, you don't want to see too many solo movies with a particular character, but I feel beyond just Ragnarok being so good that you had to do a Thor 4, because this is a character that he's not immortal, but functionally immortal. He's been alive for like 1,000 years or something, you know. Like, and because he's gone through so much and experienced so much and changed so much throughout the centuries, he does have this evergreen nature to his character that the others don't. So I could see him. It would be a bit weird, potentially, but like he had the little moment with Carol. I'm not trying to say put them together, because that was the wrong takeaway from that. It's just, I think he would have really good chemistry with both of them, and I could see them bringing in Thor, even if not for the whole movie. I don't know, but I would like to see him. Maybe both, maybe all three, maybe Valkyrie, Jane, and Thor all in it, but maybe that'd be overkill. But I have to assume you have Spider-Man, you have Black Panther, you have Captain Marvel, and then you sort of take your pick of whoever's done well. Like, it's not like Kevin Feige didn't say there's going to be an Avengers.
He said that they know what their next big event movie is going to be.
Notably absent, there is nothing with an Avengers name on it in Phase 4, because they did 2 of them in Phase 3.
They've got all kinds of stories they can do. Like, Secret Invasion is something that's kind of like around the edges, like the fact that Skrull showed up in the last 2 movies.
You had your huge saga that's building and building and building, and they had their Avengers team from relatively early, if you think about the entire history of the MCU. Now that we've had this hard reset and like so many characters are like dead or retired or their status quo has changed completely, you have this whole 10 project span to like rebuild a new Avengers team and like, you know, reestablish. And
what Marvel event would you want to see them close out a Phase 5? Like, if they do a big crossover event with everyone, what would you want to see Phase 5 be? I imagine I know what your answer would be, and we'll see whether or not you say.
I don't know what my answer is.
I think you want Annihilation.
Yeah, I would like to see an Annihilation. You're right.
It's like Annihilation, but even if they said like, what if we did the Incursions and we actually canonically made the Fox Marvel movies a thing,
maybe,
and we bring over the actors we like and we get rid of the ones we don't like, and we keep.
I think they are binning every X-Men actor.
I'm sure they are, but that's like the one thing they can do.
I mean, honestly, who would you, other than McKellen and Stewart?
Sophie Turner was good enough in Dark Phoenix,
but so good that you'd be like bummed if they recast her. Like...
No, I'm done with the big 4 from that franchise, and I don't think they gave me enough to care about with the kids in the last 2 movies to want to see them carry on, even though those are actors who I think would do a good job.
And also, this may be controversial, but I think Hugh Jackman just became so beloved because, like, I don't know, those movies, his just constant presence. I don't actually think he's a phenomenally good Wolverine. Like,
he is a very good cinematic Wolverine, but he is not Wolverine the character. And I imagine if the Marvel Universe did it, they would go proper Wolverine, and everyone would freak the fuck out because they'd cast a 5'2" hairy man to play Wolverine.
One of the biggest flexes they could make is Wolverine in the fucking traditional costume.
Yeah,
I want to see Doom. I want to see Annihilation one day. I would like them to get even more cosmic. Like, they didn't announce the Nova movie that was heavily speculated to be happening. Maybe Nova is going to be in Guardians 3. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, there's no sign of Kamala Khan, who could be in Captain Marvel 2, but I have to imagine Captain Marvel 2 is set in, like, the early 2000s or something to follow on from the 90s first movie. Or, you know, still in the 90s, but...
Or it ties into the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, maybe. No America Chavez, but, you know, I'd like to see a Young Avengers movie in Phase 5 with Kate Bishop, I'd put Kamala Khan on the Young Avengers, personally. Like, this is something I've always thought.
I mean, that's the thing, is, like, you look at what the current team of Avengers is, and what they have is the kind of, like, the three young characters that have kind of blown up outside of the Young Avengers. It is Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, and it's Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
And two of those are far more difficult to introduce to the MCU than the other one is. And so, like, obviously we've lost the Runaways to Hulu. But yeah, like, there is a really strong cast there that can be gay as fuck, and it's probably, like, the richest portion of the MCU, the Marvel comics that they've got to pull from.
Definitely.
That they haven't, and the fact that there isn't, like, the fact that a lot of those characters have gone on to have their own solo starring books, but we haven't had a follow-up to Young Avengers in so long at this point.
Bring that the fuck back. Speaking of bringing things back, the Marvel Netflix characters are back on the table from the Daredevil, Luke Cage and Iron Fist are usable from 2020, Punisher and Jessica Jones from 2021. Daredevil seems an absolute must to bring into the MCU.
So I'm intrigued. So you're a bigger fan of the Netflix shows than I am.
I might be the biggest fan of the Marvel Netflix show.
I dropped out hard. I watched Luke Cage and Iron Fist like back to back just before Defenders happened.
You don't want to do that.
I know, but I did do that before Defenders came out. I watched Defenders, and I was fully intending on watching Punisher, and I haven't watched any of them.
I think Punisher is really good.
You think Punisher's really good? You think Daredevil Season 3 is really good?
I think Daredevil Season 3 is the best Marvel-related TV show that has ever existed.
And you've told me these things. And now that they're all cancelled, I am more inclined to watch them. But
just watch Daredevil Series 3 and nothing
But my
else.
backlog is so long, and there's so I've not seen fucking Pose yet, and I need to watch Pose, and that feels like a better use of my time than Daredevil Season 3.
Probably, but you should. If you like Daredevil Series 1, you will like Daredevil Series 3, is the only thing I can say.
You are the big fan, and so I just have to ask you, like, would you want them to recast and just ignore that these things happened? Or
they've already basically done that by saying Mahershala Ali as Blade and Cotton.
But the thing is, like, you can say, like, they could still conceivably bring in Vincent D'Onofrio as
D'Onofrio is the one that I think they should do that. It's not to the same level as Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man and J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson, but, like, I feel he has delivered the iconic, definitive Kingpin performance in terms of adapted media.
I think you would have more chance of that happening if they'd cast him as Kingpin in Spider-Verse.
I expect them to get someone new, but, like, of the people from the Netflix side, he is the one I could see them being like, yeah, we cast him, but, like, none of that happened. It's just we're using the same actor because he was good. But yeah, I expect them to recast Daredevil. I think Charlie Cox was great, but I do expect them to recast him. And then Daredevil, it seems unavoidable to appear because there just aren't really many bad Daredevil runs. Like, you can pick any, like, decade. Yeah, like
Daredevil is a very good thing to kind of pull from. It's just whether or not, because they had something that was so explicitly tied to it and was so successful in its first season. Yeah. And I do think so much of that success was the first season of Daredevil was one of the only ones that have, like, a consistent creative vision or, like, good creative people behind it that weren't.
It sure is a shame that Black Widow's dead, eh? Because that's how you could tie some things in there. I don't see them doing an Iron Fist movie, a Luke Cage movie, maybe Jessica Jones.
Maybe Jessica Jones, maybe Punisher. Those, like, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Punisher feels like the three that they would be inclined to do. Luke Cage and Iron Fist, you could tie in together.
I would just do Heroes for Hire, personally, and I'd maybe even just make it a Disney Plus show.
I do think the biggest shame of the Netflix series is they never just renewed it for a second season of Defenders and just said, like, here's 6 episodes, finish what story you want to tell. So should we do a brief rundown of the other TV shows? So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. we both dropped off of. I dropped off mid-season 3. I don't know when you dropped off.
2.
Agent Carter I've watched all of. Is very good. Probably my favourite after, like, Jessica Jones and Daredevil from what I've seen. Inhumans I watched, like, 3 episodes of and noped out hard. Scott Buck should not be allowed in the Marvel Universe whatsoever.
No.
Should be allowed in TV whatsoever. Like, fuck Dexter. I've seen most of Runaway Season 1. I want to go back to it because those are my heart children. I think I said, like, if I was 10 years younger, then I would have crushes on this entire cast.
I got most of the way through it, and I was really enjoying it. They need to spend a lot more money on the Velociraptor, but, you know.
Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage, like, they know how to write kid stuff. It's just I think it hit a time in my life where I was very busy. I do want to come back to it. The third season's out in December. Maybe I'll try and catch up by then. It's the only one that I've got any interest in right now to catch up on.
I watched the first episode of Cloak and Dagger and thought it was surprisingly good. I don't know if it's great, but
it feels like there's this second run after Inhumans and outside the Netflix stuff. There's this kind of stealth, solid stuff that they're doing. Cloak and Dagger, I've heard decent things about. We've got Ghost Rider, which is a spin-off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, they're doing the Robbie Reyes version.
Yeah, because Gabriel Luna's coming back to take over that role. And then Hellstrom is coming as well next year. There is this little pocket Hulu freeform. It's interesting. The stuff that's owned by Disney, apart from Inhumans, feels like it still has a chance to be in the MCU.
Putting Ghost Rider and Hellstrom on Hulu suggests they're going to be a different age rating, but you could do that and then have Ghost Rider be in a Marvel movie, like I said, with Blade and Strange and whoever.
Apart from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. issue of them not being told what was going on in Infinity War and just kind of trucking on with their own story, the ABC stuff feels still quite not close, but less segregated.
Yeah.
And then we have the other Hulu shows.
Yeah, MODOK, The Offenders,
Jazzler and Tigra. This weird animated session that they're doing.
Those feel like they're not going to be canon.
It's Hitmonkey and Howard the Duck. It almost feels like Hulu sticking their middle finger up at Netflix.
Yes, while calling it the fucking Offenders.
Patton Oswalt's rumoured to be voicing MODOK, which is fantastic. I think you can get a bundled Hulu at Disney Plus subscription.
Maybe Disney Plus launching will make them make Hulu international finally. But
maybe. Because obviously Hulu have also bought the full controlling rights from NBC, so now Disney does fully own Hulu.
Along with all of us.
Please bring Hulu to the UK. I really want to watch Veronica Mars Season 4. I cannot avoid this spoiler that's going around for much longer.
Well, we are going to put this on ice, this podcast, until Thor Love and Thunder comes out, and possibly even the home release. As a general sentiment, I enjoyed making this podcast more when we were doing the run-up to Infinity War, where all but Black Panther had been released. Or, and been out for a while.
The benefit of hindsight, the fact that we recorded our Black Panther episode twice because we did it at the very tail end. You don't have as much flexibility to go to the cinema multiple times, or even indeed the want to go to the cinema multiple times.
Yeah, I don't like going outside, quite frankly.
I've still seen all these movies twice. I saw Spider-Man a second time before we recorded, so
I just would rather let these... We have done all of them, but I don't want to get into a pattern where we record an episode days after a new release, because I always think of stuff I should have said. I like letting them marinate and see the ones that come later, so I want to let a bunch of them build up, and when Phase 4 finishes, here's 10 episodes of the podcast.
Plus we got stuff like WandaVision and Doctor Strange tying into each other. We don't want to have a discussion of WandaVision and being I wonder where this goes, but then it comes out and we know where it goes because everyone's seen Doctor Strange.
Exactly. So this podcast will not be back for a couple of years. We will do a big bunch of episodes on Phase 4. If you're looking for immediate reactions to these movies, the Superhero Pantheon will have you covered there. I believe Mike Thomas will probably resurrect. We used to do listicles on things like that, 7 questions after Guardians 2 that you and I participated in, so that kind of stuff will be available. We've got a bunch of written content on the site, the All Marvel list, our various little listicles and writings. We will update a bunch of those and tweet them out now that Phase 3 is over, and we added to the All Marvel list but didn't actually write it up. So we'll do all that.
We have a top 25 now of our favourite performances, and even then it's not really I think Stanley Tucci probably would have made it in over some other people that we've got on the list in hindsight. It's just we very much went on this is our 25 of our favourite performances with a game. We'll see what shape, whether or not we change some of the discussion points for Phase 4.
Yeah, continue to listen to There Will Be Movies, our podcast discussing 25 of our favourite movies from a given decade. That's going to go on forever and ever and ever.
Having a look at what Matt's done to the spreadsheet, yes, it will.
Oh, you finally saw that, did you?
Yes, I did. Haven't mentioned it yet.
Look, it's just a soft idea. Look, whatever. We've got other podcasts planned for the future. We will cover Watchmen. We are going to do something with some action franchises. Until then, go to IntoTheRobot.com, go to SoundCloud.com/Mike and Matt, and just check everything out, and we will see you in 2 years to talk some more Marvel stuff. I cannot believe how long this is. I hate you and I hate myself because this has to be ready by Wednesday. Anyway, bye everyone for 2 years.
Bye.